Hello, I'm Peter Crowley, and welcome to Spotlight on Nonprofits, our show that focuses on the key part that nonprofits play in our economy, the unbelievable leaders who lead these organizations, and the volunteers and those who donate to help make it grow. Today, I'm especially excited to have a guest, Connie Mercer. Connie Mercer is from HomeFront. Connie, welcome.
I am so honored to be your inaugural guest. That's very special.
Well, we are too, and this is our inaugural show. And you and I have known each other for a long time. But tell the audience a little bit about HomeFront, about you and HomeFront. It's been an amazing story.
HomeFront takes care of Mercer County's homeless families. On any given night, we're providing shelter and all sorts of supports to about 550 families, some of them in our large safe haven near the Mercer County Airport, and the others in scattered site apartments that we've created around the community, all throughout Mercer County. But I think you were asking sort of about how we got started and, and the inaugural story.
And it's been your story too. I mean, it really has been.
Well, over 30 years ago now, at that point I was an executive recruiter, and I had very fancy offices, and I was sitting in my fancy offices, and a friend, Dr. Chris Hansen, came to me, and I said, "You got to leave your fancy offices and come and see what's going on." So we went out that day, and he took me to the godforsaken motels along the Route 1 corridor. At that point, there were tens of them. And we knocked on doors, and what I saw that day horrified me. There were hungry, homeless children who trapped in these places with their moms. In those motel rooms, there were no refrigeration. There was no way to make a meal. Usually there would be one bed and all of their earthly possessions in green garbage bags scattered around the rooms. And that wasn't the worst of it. The worst of it were in those motel rooms next to these families, these homeless families, were drug dealers on one side and prostitutes on the other. We went and we knocked on scores of doors, and at the end of the day, my friend Dr. Hansen turned to me and said, "Connie, there are hungry, homeless children in your community. Fix it." And I took up the challenge because I thought then, as I still think today, 31 years ago, 31 years later, that it's basically a PR problem. That if everybody in our very wealthy community knew that there were homeless kids, so hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of homeless children in our community every day, that they wouldn't allow it.
Well, Dr. Hansen clearly knew the right person to choose. But I do want, that's an interesting point, because I want to mention this metric here. 40% of the homeless in the United States today are under the age of 18. Mm-hmm. And in Mercer County, it's almost 54% are female. Have you seen that mix change over your 30 years?
Oh, we have, but the statistics today, if they were done today, would show that the average age when someone is homeless, that the modal age, the age when more people are homeless, are 0 to 1. We have all of these babies at our shelter now who are homeless. Can you imagine being a pregnant woman with no place to go?
No, I can't. And I think that's one of the things that people don't understand. People don't choose to be homeless. There's a whole number of reasons, medical, family violence, people just kicked out, that any of us could find ourselves in that situation. I know when I was talking to the brain injury group, you and I could drive home tomorrow and I could have a brain injury, and for the rest of my life I'd be in a different state. Homeless finds the same thing, but you guys have done an amazing job. I know there have to be proud moments that you've seen yourself as a leader of HomeFront. Can you talk about one or two of those proud moments where you go home and say, I'm making a difference, I'm happy?
Oh my gosh. That's why I do the work, because I am blessed to have so many of those proud moments where the work of my staff and of our volunteers is changing people's lives. Let me tell you a recent story. It's a little bit long, but it's a fascinating story. One of our first families that we took care of was at the Sleepy Hollow Motel, which I understand finally came down yesterday.
Down. I drove by it coming in this morning.
I was so excited to see that it's down.
There's a Clarion Hotel going in, I think. This is going to go in.
We have put four welfare motels out of business. HomeFront has, and I'm very proud of that.
You should be.
But at the Sleepy Hollow Motel, there was a family of 3, headed by a dad, which was pretty unusual. There was a little girl there, Amber, and she was 3 years old, and I was the one who had to tell her that her mother was dead. Mother had died of drugs. We stayed very involved with that particular family because although Dad worked very hard, he was an addict too. We wrapped, my volunteers and then staff wrapped that family in services. We got them into the Lawrence Township schools. We provided all sorts of supports. Our commitment was to get them all through high school. We lost track. A couple weeks ago, on a Friday night, we were told that my husband needed emergency surgery, open heart surgery, but the medical team had worked too hard all day and they were exhausted, and they didn't think that because the operation was going to be so complicated that they could do it that night. I was told, we will stabilize your husband, and we will come in the morning. If anything happens during the night, we will come. But we will be here at 6 o'clock on Saturday morning. I get to the hospital at 5:30 because I had been told I could come early, but nobody had told the security guard. And I'm fighting that I need to. And all of a sudden, this lovely young woman comes up out of no place and puts her arm around me and says to the security guard, she's wearing hospital garb, she says, "This is Miss Connie. She's been like a mother to me. I'll take her where she needs to go." And as we go upstairs, Amber tells me that she doesn't usually work at the hospital. This has become a new weekend gig because she's just bought her first home and she needed some extra money. During the week, she works dispatching hospice people and providing support to them.
Wow.
So
what a great story.
You know, at my moment of need,
the payback came.
The payback came.
Wow. You mentioned a little earlier the location of the airport. I was honored to be invited to that opening for that transitional housing. I saw it being built. Talk about the success that organization, that particular location has had in transitional housing.
Ooh. Our safe haven at our campus at the airport is a model across the country and people, because we have understood that in order for people to claw their way out of poverty, and that's such a difficult task, you need all the services in one spot. So at our campus, we have, first of all, dignified rooms for everybody with their own bathrooms and their own space. So, but we have a whole variety of services, including childcare, including domestic violence. God bless Women's Space. We partner with them very well, and they have staff on site. We have a medical clinic, and we have opportunities for people to get their high school equivalency diplomas, or in some cases simply to learn to read. Our volunteers are so magnificent and take these families, these young moms under their wings. And if someone's ready, if somebody's ready, at our campus, they have all the tools they will need in order to become independent. And I misspeak when I say all of our moms, because in the old days it was all moms. It was always women, and you would ask me and I hadn't really very well answered. 30 years ago, you only saw homeless women with their children. Now about 10% of our population, the families have men in them. And we're seeing more and more single daddies who are taking full responsibility for the children.
That's a great story, I think, from my point of view to see. But it's unfortunate that the individual is in that position, but to be able to continue to support their family.
That the daddies are stepping up.
That is great.
Yeah.
That is great. Now, I'm curious, with some of the male population, are you seeing veterans who are challenged in many ways also reaching out to you, who may not have families but are looking for help?
Our state has done a pretty good job of providing a network for homeless vets. Probably that's the population that they have done the best job for. So that's not our particular population.
Good. I have some statistics here, and unfortunately they are not positive. Point in Time did a study back in 2020. In any one night, there's almost 10,000 people in New Jersey that are homeless. And Mercer County, they've seen a rise of both 13% from 2019 to 2020, and then from 2020, almost a 9% increase. How do you keep up with that increase? I mean, you're only one person, and I know you've got a staff, but still you lead that. How do you keep up with that unfortunate growing population?
First of all, I do need to challenge the point in time numbers. They're way low. And there have been a lot of studies that show that the actual populations across the country about 3 times whatever the point in time comes. People don't want to say that they're homeless, and unless they say I'm homeless, you can't put them in that box. I have interviewed people who are living in the woods in tents, and we'll say, "How long have you been homeless?" And they say, "I'm not homeless. This is my place.
This is my home.
This is my home." So the numbers are unfortunately much lower than reality. But yes, indeed, the homeless population, particularly of homeless people with children, is going up, and that's because of the horrific affordability crisis in housing.
Especially in New Jersey.
Especially in New Jersey. And I know I grew up in a Levittown type community because a long time ago, this country had a commitment to make sure that if you worked 40 hours a week, you could put a roof over your kids' heads. And if you were white, at least, the government had a commitment to you. That commitment is gone, and throughout Republican and Democratic administrations, the amount of funding for housing to support housing has gone down by 90%.
Wow.
That's why we didn't have a crisis when you and I were growing up, and why there is a crisis today.
Yeah, it's funny, when I was growing up, I don't remember that crisis at all being as bad as it is now.
No.
We're going to take a break here, and before we do, I want to thank NJM for sponsoring this show. They've been a supporter of HomeFront, a supporter of organizations in our region for many, many years. So we'll take a break, and we'll be right back to Spotlight on Nonprofits. Welcome back to Spotlight on Nonprofits. Again, I'm Peter Crowley with Connie Mercer from HomeFront, and we thank NJM for our sponsorship. Connie, we're talking about the growth, the unfortunate growth in homelessness, and how you have to change to accommodate that. Well, what is it you've been doing to stay ahead of this?
Yes, if there are more homeless children, we need to make sure that we grow so that we can fix it. But one of the major things we're trying to do is homelessness prevention. As strong as our programs are, if we can help a family avoid the trauma of homelessness, that's what we most want to do. This year we'll give out about $800,000 of government and private monies to help keep people in their homes. That's probably the most efficient thing that can be done, is to keep people from having to experience homelessness at all. But then we have to make sure that they have the skills that they need in order to be able to make the kind of living that they need in order to live in this incredibly high-cost state. So we're spending a lot of time helping people develop the tools for self-sufficiency.
That's so important, the educational tools. I mean, if you're a young person and you don't have the opportunity to be educated early on, you're always behind. You're never going to catch up. And given the changing workforce, the changing labor needs, I think getting ahead of that with individuals, I always remember back when they took out the toll booths. You used to have toll takers.
Yep.
Good job, good pay.
job.
You didn't have to have great education, but it was a good job. That's gone. Where do those people go now? So you're able to help some individuals get new job training.
Absolutely, and and we're working with the kids. Every night we have programming for kids, six days a week, and one of our most important courses is a course on computers and on coding. We want the kids to grow up with the skills that are going to make it so that they
What a great way to do
have
that.
a shot at the future.
What a great way to go do that.
HomeFront's commitment is breaking the cycle of poverty, and we have learned over the years that basically by making sure that kids have a better shot is how we're going to break that cycle. Sometimes we can help the moms get out of poverty. Often, frankly, and it makes me sad to say, our job is to make it less painful to live in poverty and not to have, and to know that there are food bags you can come and get so your children aren't going to be hungry.
Right.
But it's with the kids that we're going to break that cycle.
So I'm going to jump back to a statistic again. And according, again, NJ.com, Mercer County has the 6th largest homeless population. But one of the other facets I looked at was, again, I think from on the point, is that any one day there's about 300 homeless individuals in Mercer County. But they're not all in Trenton, which people think about. But only about 2/3 are in Trenton. There's a third, or 33% are outside of Trenton. What services are available for homeless in Lawrenceville, in Hamilton, in Princeton? What happens to those individuals? Can they go to you, or are there other services?
Oh, HomeFront is in fact not based in Trenton. We're based in Lawrence
I
Township.
apologize. Okay.
And in Ewing, we have
I know the campus in Ewing, the airport.
And we have 22 different sites across the county.
Wow, I did not know
Yeah.
you were going 22 campus sites. Wow.
No, well, most of them are housing.
Home housing.
That look just like any housing in their community. But there are a number of organizations across the community that help with homeless folks. But your major point is, no, homelessness is not just a Trenton issue. It is across our entire community. There are folks who struggle day to day to keep a roof over their kids' heads.
I think the difficult thing, as we mentioned earlier, is you could be going along as a family fine. All of a sudden, a major health issue could happen, which could bankrupt you. Or there could be something else, an accident, that you have major medical bills could help.
It doesn't even have to be that dramatic. The car can break down.
Yeah.
And you, yesterday,
Or a job. You could lose a job.
Or yesterday we had somebody who couldn't pay the rent came to us because they had chosen to bury their mother
Instead of paying the rent.
instead of paying the rent. It's those kind of things. So many people live on the precipice of homelessness.
Check to check.
Check to
day
check.
to day. And without organizations like yourself, I can only imagine the difficulties that these people would face. I don't want to make it all about the metrics, though. I do want to make it a little bit about you, because you have been a 30-year leader, not only in the nonprofit community, but you've been a mentor to so many people. And I myself have known you for a long time. But how does HomeFront raise funds? I mean, you have to every day in a nonprofit be working to raise funds. I mean, how do you go out there and get those donors and work those individuals who have a real need to help you?
Oh, people care. People care, and they want to help. Last year, HomeFront gave out $5 million of donated goods and services. People want to give us their stuff, and they want to give us their time. They want to make a difference. And we pay back our donors mostly with stories. and with connections so that they know that they made a difference.
I will also jump in and say they know you and trust you. That's a major part of a nonprofit, is the individual who leads it, and what you do with that. It's something that often gets lost, because if things are going well, no one cares. But when things fall down, that they need someone to pick them up, as you have done. But I also want to talk a little bit on a personal level. HomeFront has clearly made a difference in people's lives, without a doubt. And you may not have a lot of free time, but what do you do with your free time? How does Connie Mercer relax? Because I know you have to.
Well, right now it's springtime, and I'm married to a farmer. So when I'm not doing HomeFront, I am being farmer's wife and taking my man to the field. And
Really?
Yeah.
Is it a working farm?
Oh yeah. He works harder than any human being I know, and however I can support that is.
So you're not on the beach, you're out with the trousers and that big hat doing the vegetables.
I can't get the tractor to go straight enough for him, so he doesn't let me do that very often. But I do all the support stuff that I can.
Now I'm going to have to ask this question: the food that you raise, I assume you keep some of it, and does some go to HomeFront?
Oh, it's corn and beans.
Corn and beans? Okay.
It's not. It's a different kind of farming.
So. The question that always comes up, and I've been fortunate to be on both sides, the corporate side and the nonprofit side. What got you interested? You talked about Dr. Hansen, but that was a one-time shot, and then you talked about your passion. What keeps you interested in doing this? It is not an easy job. No. I know for a fact it's not an easy job. What drives you? What makes Connie Mercer get up in that morning when it's raining out and it's cold, and you know there's a family that has to be helped?
I get huge payback from seeing these families be successful. What could be a better way to live than to know I'm making a difference, and that I'm helping staff make a difference? That's a pretty glorious thing.
Well, it is. It really is. And I know I've met your staff. And they adore you. But I'll tell you, and if the audience. Doing what Connie does every day and out is a lot of work, more work than you'll ever realize. And I think you need to have that emotional response, that emotional return when you see a family. You mentioned Amber, who put her arm around you and said, "I'll take care of you."
Yeah.
And there has to be other stories of families that you've been able to see them later on when you've made a difference and say, "That's because of what I've done and what HomeFront's done."
Yes, sir. And I'm a privileged woman, but there are so many ways that people in our community can come and help, and this has been such a generous, such a forthcoming, amazing community that if people know about the need, they want to make a difference. And
that's great.
Yeah.
So I know that you're coming to the next stage of your career. We don't use the R word in here, as you and I both know. But what is next for Connie Mercer? I mean, I know this HomeFront never goes away.
Yeah.
But what is next for you?
I'm going to be continuing at HomeFront, but not wearing the HomeFront blue, but not as the CEO. So I get to do all the fun stuff again. I don't have to worry about rising insurance costs and bed bugs. I will mostly be doing advocacy on a state and national level. HomeFront has learned how to make a difference, how to put together all the services so that people can get out of poverty. And it's time to make sure that other folks know that. I have a side gig right now. My side gig is we've started a consortium and association of all the shelters across the state. About 200 shelters who on any given night are sheltering about 9,000 people, but we had never talked before. We had all of these problems with government, with clients, with vendors, and we never talked before. So now we're talking, now we're coming together. There's force in numbers, government's listening to us, and we're sharing best practices. It is just a phenomenal thing. And people are making connections. So this is lonely work. This is hard work.
I absolutely know what you're talking about, and it is.
And having other providers from across the state come together twice a month, if only on those little Zoom boxes, is so gratifying to know that other people are dealing with the issue of the day for us is medical marijuana. Mm-hmm. How do we let our clients use medical marijuana when we're running places that by federal law have to be drug-free?
Right.
So
that is a challenge.
Yeah, but it's nice to talk to other people who are dealing with the same thing, and it's government is just giving us a very major grant, the Shelter Consortium, to make sure that if the COVID crisis comes back in the fall, that all the shelters are ready for it, that we have money for the testing and for the staff and for the PPE, because our shelter population is perhaps the most vulnerable of all the populations.
Well, if I was a betting man, I'd bet on you on that, making that work. But before we end, tell me something that people would like to know about Connie Mercer they don't know. Now, I just learned you were a farmer. A farmer's
wife. I could not.
Farmer's wife. I don't want to. But tell me something that people don't know. But and think something that would, here's this woman who does all this work. What don't they know about you?
They don't know that I, for many years, drove around town in a car with the license plate Idiot 1. I grew true. My dad had a business in New England called Idiot's Delight. We sold gifts, the itching powder and the fake vomit and those kind of things. Mm-hmm. That's what put me through college. And my dad's license plate on his car was Idiot's Delight, was Idiot 1. Yeah. And when he passed, I got a car and I got the license plate, Idiot 1.
Well, I guarantee you very few people know about that one. As we come to the end of this show, I like to do two things. One, you're going to see on the screen where you can contribute and donate to HomeFront. I will tell you, it is an organization that you should be proud of. It is a great organization. And I also want to thank Connie Mercer. Connie, for what you've done, the impact you've had in this region, the impact you will now have on a more national scale in New Jersey is something I'm looking forward to watching.
Oh, Peter, thank you so much for your kind words. They mean so much.
And that's it. Thank you. This is Spotlight on Nonprofits, and we'll see you next week.